Hello and welcome. Myself M Gondhalekar. I belong to Business Economics Department, and today I am going to speak on the principle of maximum social advantage. This principle has prime position in the field of public finance, and public finance is a separate branch of economics which studies the relationship between income and expenditure of the government and the dependency of income and expenditure one another. And this principle has been introduced by the famous British economist Dalton. According to Dalton, that government activities should be such that there should be maximum advantage to the society. And this principle of maximum social advantage says that the government should spend and government should earn income for the benefit of or for the welfare of the entire society. Now I am going to introduce to you certain assumptions of this particular principle. The assumption first, that tax is only source of revenue to the government. Two major activities of the government is collection of tax and expenditure. The government spends on variety of different schemes, that is called as public expenditure, and government normally spends first, or government has the idea of spending first and then government earns income. So assumption number one, tax is only source of revenue to the government. In fact, we have already learned that there are several other sources of revenue to the government, like for example fees, fines, donations, etc. But it has been assumed here that tax is the only source of revenue to the government. Second assumption, that tax creates sacrifice. So when tax is imposed, that it creates sacrifice or it generates, in words of Dalton, disutility. Third assumption, that additional tax generates additional sacrifice which tends to increase. So when more and more tax is imposed by the government, it results into more and more sacrifice. For example, when the government increases the units of taxation, say for example rupees 100 to rupees 200, naturally the disutility from taxation increases, and therefore it has been assumed that additional tax generates additional sacrifice and which goes on increasing. Please keep this in mind, that additional sacrifice is generated through additional unit of taxation. Fourth assumption, that expenditure leads to benefit. So whenever government spends money on variety of schemes, for example literacy program, or for example reduction of poverty, or for example to increase employment in the entire economy, it generates benefits to the society. So both the functions of the government, both the activities of the government, of which first activity creates sacrifice, another activity generates benefit to the society. Next assumption, that benefits decline with additional unit that government spends. So as government goes on spending on variety of schemes, the benefits go on declining. The next assumption, that government has balanced budget. This assumption that government has balanced budget, you will come to know later on when I am going to explain in detail that how this principle works. Now we are reading with these assumptions to understand what is the principle of maximum social advantage. Out of two activities of the government, as I said earlier, one of the very important activity is collection of revenue, and tax is the only source of revenue to the government. So when government imposes higher taxes, look at this particular diagram which is about marginal social sacrifice of the government. When the government imposes taxes, it leads to sacrifice or disutility. We have already seen. Now look at this particular diagram. On x-axis units of taxation are denoted, on y-axis marginal social sacrifice is denoted. Additional taxation from M to M1 or OM to OM1 leads to additional sacrifice from OS to OS2. Further increase in number of units of tax from OM1 to OM2 leads to increase in sacrifice from OS2 to OS3. This indicates that marginal social sacrifice curve goes on increasing and it leads to additional disutility. According to Dalton, when government spends for the society, it leads to benefits. And this curve in this diagram, the diagram is about marginal social benefits, that additional units of expenditure generates additional benefit to the society. In this diagram, x-axis represents units of public expenditure and y-axis represents marginal social benefits. So as government goes on spending more and more units from, for example, from OM1 to OM2 and OM2 to OM3, it leads to decline in the total benefits earned by the government. Say for example, when government spends M1, M2 additional units of public expenditure, this leads to decline in marginal social benefit from OB1 to OB2. Further increase in the number of units of expenditure by the government from OM2 to OM3 leads to decline in benefits from OB2 to OB3. So this tells us that additional tax creates additional disutility and additional benefit leads to additional benefit to the entire society, but it goes on declining. So this is how Dalton has explained that two activities generate altogether opposite kind of situations for the society. One group of society benefits out of it and one group of society has to sacrifice. According to Dalton, when marginal social sacrifice and marginal social benefits both are equal, the social advantage is maximum. In this diagram, on x-axis we have taken budgetary activities of the government and on y-axis we have taken benefits and sacrifice, which we have already learned in MSS and MSB curves. In this diagram, these two curves, this MSS upward sloping curve and MSB downward sloping curve intersect each other at point B. This point P, this point indicates the point of social advantage or maximum social advantage. Now you may ask me the question, why advantage is maximum at this particular point? Let us have a look. But before that, I would like to tell you that this on x-axis we have taken budgetary activities of the government, and at OM level of budgetary activity or OM units of expenditure and taxes, the entire advantage of the society is maximum, and that advantage is denoted by the triangle OPT. This is because this curve of marginal social benefit starts from y-axis from point T, and the curve MSS starts from the 0. Now at this particular point, the social advantage of the is maximum, and suppose that the government spends less or government activity, budgetary activity is less than OM budgetary activity. For example, if it is OM1, then look what happens. Now at OM1 level of activity of the government, MSB is higher than MSS. Marginal social benefit is higher than marginal social sacrifice. And therefore, there are chances that if the government's activity increase, total advantage of the society would increase up to point P. So this entire triangle TPO indicates the maximum social advantage to the society. Let us have a look what happens if the budgetary activity increases than OM level of units. Suppose the budgetary activity of the government increases from OM to OM2. Let us see what happens. Look at this particular two curves, MSS and MSB, and look at this. MSS is higher than MSB, clearly indicates that the sacrifice is higher than benefit. So if the budgetary activity is less, then social advantage is not maximum. If budgetary activity is greater than OM level of activity, then the sacrifice is higher than the benefit, and therefore the society gets maximum advantage at the point where MSB curve intersects MSS curve. So this is Dalton's idea of the principle of maximum social advantage, which we have learnt with the help of Dalton. Principle of maximum social advantage introduced by Dalton has improved by Musgrave. In fact, Musgrave's version and Dalton's version are similar, but according to Musgrave, that Dalton has extended the idea of Pigou, the famous welfare economist, According to Musgrave, look at this particular diagram. According to Musgrave, that the principle of maximum social advantage explains about the size of the budget. For example, here in the diagram on x-axis we have taken tax as well as public expenditure. This axis below point 0 is negative axis and axis above point 0 is positive axis. Now this EE curve is the curve of public expenditure and TT curve is the curve of taxation. Expenditure generates benefit, so it is on positive axis, and tax creates sacrifice or disutility to the society, and therefore it is on the negative side in the diagram. Now in the diagram, for example, look at this particular size of budget OM. When the size of budget is OM, look at the diagram to the expenditure curve and to the taxation curve and distance between these two curves. This NN curve indicates the net social benefit to the society. Now, when size of the budget is OM, net social benefit to the society are 0. This point indicates or corresponds to the 0 of x-axis, and therefore this indicates that when net social benefits are 0, the total size of budget indicates maximum social advantage. So maximum social advantage is achieved when size of the budget is OM. Now look at the diagram. In the diagram, if you look at this particular portion from M to P, which indicates advantage to the society or which indicates the benefits, marginal social benefits to the society, and M and this particular point indicate that marginal social sacrifice to the society. Marginal social benefits are exactly equal to marginal social sacrifice at size of budget OM. So OM is ideal size of budget. Government should spend equal to OM units. Public expenditure of the government should equal to OM units. That time net social benefits will be 0, but at the same time the maximum social advantage will be achieved. So according to Musgrave, that maximum social advantage is achieved at the point where the entire marginal social sacrifice, marginal social benefits are equal to each other, and net social benefits or net social benefit or advantage of the society is equal to 0. Now both the approaches, approach of Dalton as well as approach of Musgrave, both the approaches are similar, and according to both the approaches, now the maximum social advantage is achieved at that particular point where marginal social benefits are equal to marginal social sacrifice. Thank you for watching.